Welcome to Doing It Right, the stories that make us, brought to you by Valerie and Company. You'll hear fascinating stories from successful leaders who have lived life doing it right. Most interview shows focus on how someone became successful, how they made it happen. We think it's important to know what happened to make it happen. It's about the journey to become a leader and hearing personal experiences that form their character, drive, impact, and influence. Their stories and authenticity will inspire you. Now, here's your host, national news contributor and founder of Valerie and Company, Valerie Sokolowski.
Well, hi, and welcome to our show today. Have you ever had those situations at work or in life where you've just had to use pure grit to plow through? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about today with my guest, Heather Herndon-Wright, and let me tell you a little bit about Heather. Heather is a very respected professional who currently is the Director of Supply Chain Diversity at Vistra Energy. So I just want to start with that. Grit, Vistra Energy. You know, Energy Future Holdings was, according to research, the biggest bankruptcy in the history of the United States. And you used pure grit to channel the waters, make it as smooth as possible for you and your team. A lot of people left. So how did you do that? Tell us a little bit about that journey. I think it's interesting.
I tell you, interesting would be a small word, but it was also very educational. I had a friend of mine at the time that said it's good to do things sometimes it's good to have done them. It's one we've done. I never want to do it again, but it was very educational, and particularly from a supply chain perspective, because I think every supplier, every business owner in America should take a Bankruptcy 101 course just to know what to look for, how to handle it if they're coming into a bankruptcy, working with a company where they want to partner through it. This was not a Chapter 13. We weren't filing to go out of business. It was not about bad business management at all.
Oh.
It was Chapter 11 restructuring, and it was a result of the industry, of a technology disruption, fracking, and economics, and just the power prices dropping as significantly as they did, as quickly as they did. So it was something that had to be done. However, we have emerged as Vistra Energy as the strongest in the industry right now. We're in acquisition mode, and so we've kind of gone from one issue that it requires grit to now a whole nother issue that requires grit, because where we used to have 15 power plants in one state with one retail electric provider, we're now in 13 states, 55 power plants with 3 retail electric providers. And yet we're saving money and trying to create synergies. So we're not adding staff necessarily. We're certainly not spending more money. We're trying to decrease that and meet market expectations. So it's taken a whole nother, we're learning a new set of skills.
I'll bet.
We're working well with others and playing well with others and trying to integrate those systems. We have a great CEO, a great leadership team. I'm very, very blessed to work with a great management committee that is very supportive of our efforts in supply chain diversity. So we're able to bring that into the new business and how we're growing the business. It's been a great opportunity for me.
I'll bet you have learned a lot. So you talked about especially learning in supplier diversity. So for those who aren't completely clear of what all that means, what is it you do?
So my job is basically to work with companies that are owned by minorities, veterans, women, and small businesses, in addition to that of all shapes and sizes, to try to identify ways to bring them into our supply chain, for a corporate supply chain. So to create opportunities for bidding, to help them become competitive if they come in at first and maybe they're not of the size and scale to really be able to be competitive, working to develop those companies so that they can compete for our business. And one of the things that we found is they really do drive additional cost savings and innovation. Well, it's not compliance driven. We do it for the market. We do it because we know our customers want that. That's who our customers are. Our customers are now businesses that are owned by minority, women, and veterans. So we really do look to how do we recycle those dollars and bring in those companies so they can buy more of our electricity to help drive their company, so they can drive down our prices to drive additional electricity sales. So it really is mutually beneficial for all of us in the supply chain. And I get to do that. I get to help create jobs every day in areas where traditionally they may not have had access or opportunity to even come in and show us the innovation. And it drives business value for Vistra, and it drives the economic development of those companies and those communities.
So let's talk about the drive for the drive. You've been involved with diversity and inclusion efforts for a long time, Heather. I was very impressed with the fact that you were one of the founders of the women-owned business, now national certification organization, and it started right here in Dallas, Texas, right?
And it started out of some Warrior women that were based here in Dallas, yes.
Okay, so there's a story, there's a video or an audio on that whole history, but you were on the ground. So let's go back to grit, because how long ago was this when that started?
So that was a little over 20 years ago now.
Uh-huh.
And it started where there were efforts. Women had been part of the minority business programs and organizations across the country for many years.
Okay.
They didn't have gender specific, it was just ethnicity specific. And there got to a point where there needed to be a gender specific organization as well for women of all colors. And so, because there's a difference between a male owned company who may be a husband and wife that are both African American or Hispanic or Asian or American Indian,
Right.
and a husband and wife owned company that might be Anglo. So what we tried to do was create an organization that really looked at the gender ownership of a company, and create the certification for that verifies that there are at least 51% or more owned, controlled, and operated, not just ownership, but that the women are running, owning, and leading these companies. And so that's what we did, was looked at how do we create a national organization. And there were, at least at the time, 4 other organizations across the country. So that's why I say some states would argue it all started in Dallas, but this
Okay.
is where the impetus came from.
Right.
There were 4 other in Louisiana and Michigan, or Louisiana, Ohio, and in Chicago. And Chicago had been certifying women business development. The Women Business Development Center had been certifying women businesses for many years.
Oh.
And so between them and Dallas and Louisiana Council and the Ohio Council, those were the first 4 regional affiliates that created this national organization. Now we have 14, and it is a robust organization with over 13, almost 14,000 certified women business enterprises across the country now. So I, as a supply chain professional, and my team can go into a database and search based on criteria. We're looking for size, we're looking for location, we may be obviously what they do, certifications, other certifications they may have, if it's in technology, if it's in mil specifications, whatever we're looking for in manufacturing or anything. So it takes a lot of time out of our search, a lot of the cost out of our supply chain to be able to have that as a tool to identify the best, brightest, most qualified, capable, and competitive businesses that happen to be women-owned. And we have similar organization, another organization we're on the board of for the National Minority Supplier Development Council, so for minority businesses. And I'm in the process now, we're in the process now, and on the ground, again, founding a national veteran business organization to do the
goodness.
same thing.
Grit.
So we're excited about that. We are excited to help serve our veterans in this country.
So, you know, for those people, and there are a lot, who have no idea about getting certified, I am a woman-owned business, and when I share that with other women-owned businesses who don't have a clue that there's any organization or what it would mean to them, I'm truly amazed that they don't know. And so for those listeners who don't, and if you do own a business and you are a woman, I think you ought to look into it. And it's you can get back to Heather or I after the show, Valerie and Company. Heather, you're at Vistra Energy to find out more about it. Right. But it's good certification. It does make a difference. So I know as a woman-owned business that I can go to companies for my consulting business and leadership development training programs, and I can say, by the way, I am a woman-owned business, and most of the time major corporations go, oh, and I get put a little bit higher on the list. So it's good. But let me go back to that grit. Where does this passion and this determination to plow through come from?
Well, so I think with me, it started back. I was a single mom with 2 children, had come through an abusive relationship, and had 3 years of college. Had to go back and get that 4th year. So I was very fortunate to have family support to be able to do that.
You had 2 kids at the time.
Had 2 children, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And so I went back to school, got the degree, and I had always wanted to be president of the United States and ultimately a Supreme Court Chief Justice. I had a very focused plan and then veered off. So I'm not dead yet, could still happen. But I got back and went back to school. I was very fortunate. My parents talked me into going back to school and getting that degree. It's very important to have education in addition to experience. So I kind of worked my way through. I was a political consultant at the time, had just run the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court's reelection campaign. And so I was going to go ahead on to law school. At the last minute decided, let me go ahead. I got my degree, got that last 30 hours.
Good.
Let me go on to law school, applied to the only law school I can that was local. That way I'd have my family to help support the 2 children that I had, and just go right on through. Well, the problem was, even with a letter of recommendation from the Supreme Court Chief Justice of the state of Texas, as well as graduating top of my class and high LSAT scores, I didn't get in. And so,
Really?
yeah. Because the Chief Justice had written me a letter of recommendation, he was a little upset that I had not gotten in. So he got me an interview with the dean to see what I could have done differently.
Sure.
And so I went in and talked with him, and bottom line was I applied a little bit too late in the cycle. They had already accepted their quota of white females, and I'm Native American, but I hadn't put that on my application. So he said, if you apply now, we'll get you in at the top of the class for next semester. But I had 2 kids to support. I didn't have the time to do that. So my mama raised me, if you have a headache, take an aspirin. If not, quit your bitching. So I didn't like this diversity thing at all. Didn't like quotas, didn't like set-asides. Actually, I still don't like that because I think they tend to drive bad business decisions and it's not sustainable.
Right.
So I went ahead and got into diversity, supplier diversity specifically, looking at how do we help grow companies that are minority women-owned at the time. Now we've added veterans, LGBTQ, people with disabilities. We've added other categories to that. But really got into it to see, okay, how can we fix this so it's really business-driven? Because I did believe the more competition you have, the more you're going to drive savings, the more you're going to drive innovation. That's the beauty of America, right, is that we're an open market. So the more competition we have, the better results we're going to get. So I wound up going into supplier diversity, went to work for the Greater Dallas Chamber of Commerce, ultimately then to DFW Airport Board, really learned certification at that point and how you put federal regulations in place with what a certified minority or woman-owned business is, and we're now applying that to veteran businesses as well. So really working through that process, and then ultimately went into the Women Business Council, North Texas Women's Business Council at the time, now the Women's Business Council Southwest, and from there went to corporate. So in the telecom industry before the telecom bust, and then after that went into my own business, decided, okay, let me see if I can do this myself.
Goodness.
Which I will always admire entrepreneurs. I do not like it. I am not an entrepreneur. It was good. I was successful for 3 years, made enough money to put food on the table, but I really prefer the corporate side where the corporations pay you to bring in the minority and women-owned businesses and the veteran businesses that can be competitive for our business. So I love what I'm doing now. I've been doing it for about 27 years. And I really do think we now, as a country, are not anywhere near as compliance-driven as we are market-driven from our supplier diversity efforts. We're really looking at those companies that can bring us the best value.
It's been said about you, and you've just sort of reiterated it, Heather. Someone called you an evangelist. What would you say about that?
So I think that's probably accurate in many areas of my life. I am a woman of faith, of strong faith, but I really do believe that when you know something and you know that it's right, and you can communicate that and influence people with it, with data. I'm a big data junkie too. I want to know, what are the statistics behind our women-owned business, minority-owned businesses? What do they bring? How much do we spend? What percentage is attributable to cost savings over maybe what the utilization is? So I really do believe that if you believe in something, truly believe in it deeply, and it's at the core of your being and the values that you bring to the conversation, that we're all evangelists. Be for good or bad, whatever it is that we believe in, we're all evangelists. So for me, my passion has really been growing these businesses. My granddaughter asks me, Grandma, what is it that you do? And how do you explain supplier diversity to a 9-year-old, right?
Right.
So I tell her, I get to create jobs for a living.
There you
That's
go.
what I do. I
That's
go into
it.
places where there might not otherwise have been opportunity and help grow these businesses so they can hire more people, so they can feed their families, so they can go off and do what they want to do.
So at the end of the day, when you put your head down on your pillow and you've been successful, clearly, all through all of these situations and companies that you've worked for, what is it you're most proud of?
So, I would challenge that I've always been successful, because I would say actually one of the things I'm probably most proud of is my failures and the ability to get up and go again after that. Because I am an early adopter and a risk taker. I think, again, when it's something I believe in, I don't do it without data behind it, but many times it takes that evangelist to take things forward where other people are hesitant to do it. So often you'll fail, or you won't be able to influence the people that you want influenced the first time around. I don't believe in no. I believe in not yet, or maybe not this way. It may be at another time. But I think if you're, one of my quotes that I tell my suppliers is talent is necessary, but timing is everything. So you really need to have that value proposition, and you need to deliver it to the right time, at the right time, to the right person in the right place. So I think it's doing things right? So I think that's what's the most critical thing. And many times you're going to fail along the way. And I live by quotes. Another one of the quotes that's really shaped my life was from my daddy, who probably at the top of his lungs told me, a moving ship is easier to steer than one that's dead in the water. In other words, get up and move, do something. Kind of goes with my mom's quote about picking up what I need to be doing. So I think those are two of the things that have really, just do something. You see something out there that needs to be done. You have a solution for it. Do it through the proper channels. Don't just go off the rails. Do it through the proper channels, but go do it. Even if nobody else is doing it. Find something that needs to be done that you can create a solution to and go and do that. Whether you do it as an entrepreneur, whether you do it as an employee, whether you do it as a mother, whether you do it as a friend, anything that needs to be done that you see, you can do. We do a lot of volunteer work in our family over the holidays. And a couple of years ago, my granddaughter had seen, we were actually down at Fair Park, and they do a Christmas thing where we donate a bike, and they have this little bike mart. Then they have a food area where you can bring it, where they give away food. So the families that come through, they get a whole Christmas meal. They get Christmas presents for the kids. They get clothes for the family. And so they have a lot of volunteers that will come and kind of help make sure that everybody gets what they need, and nobody gets too much, nobody gets too little, and everybody gets a sufficient amount.
I like that.
Well, the place all the kids want to work, of course, is in the bike mart.
Of course.
So they can help give away bikes to other kids that come through. And Eiffel is my granddaughter's name. She was working in the bike mart, but she saw over in the food line that there was an area where they could get potatoes, and there was one person handing them out, and the line was kind of getting backed up, and because there was nobody there literally to rip the bags of potatoes open so that they could hand out 2 or 3 potatoes to each person.
No one liked potatoes.
well, the people liked potatoes. They were in line to get them, but they couldn't get them out quick enough because nobody was helping. It wasn't the sexy job to do, right?
There you go.
So she said, "Hey, Grandma, would it be okay if I go over there and help them open those bags of potatoes so the line goes faster?" And I just was so proud of her at that moment. And I said, "You know what? Go ask the lady that was over there, the volunteer. Ask her if it's okay if you do that. But yeah, I think that'd be great. They could definitely use the help. And I'll be over in a minute. I'll come help you." So we went over and just ripped bags of potatoes after that.
How old is Eiffel?
So she was 9 at the time.
9
She's 12
years old.
today, but she was 9 at the time. And I just so admired that in her, that she would see something that needed to be done and just go do it. She asked first, but go do it. And that's what I think for emerging leaders everywhere, that really is just finding those things that need to be done, creating a solution to that, getting the right permission and the right path to go get it done, but go do it. Just do it and do it right.
Well, that's an interesting statement, doing it right. All right. So I'd love to take it back to your mama and your daddy and those quotes. Are you giving quotes that are your quotes now to your family?
Oh, yeah. I have to my daughter, who's now 34 years old, son, and my son, all the kids, and then now the grandkids. I've got 4 grandkids. So I know for me, that's what helps me remember things. And for whatever reason, when I'm in a time of stress, that's what comes back to me. Scriptures and quotes. That's what will come back to me to help me make my decisions on which path I want to take or what I want to do. And sometimes it's just be still. Sometimes we just need to wait.
That's interesting.
That was the hardest one for me to learn. I'm
bet.
still learning it. I haven't learned it yet. But sometimes that's what the answer is. Just be still. Not now.
You know, I'm thinking about how many people say today, "Oh, I can't do this or that. Well, I have to ask permission. Well, that wouldn't be the right thing to do, to take a risk, or well, it wouldn't serve me." Almost a fear factor of I might lose my job, you know. And you've been through those things too. What would you say about that? In today's world, how do you find those places that someone isn't doing something and you see a need and you're saying, just go do it? But maybe listeners are thinking, yeah, right, easy for her, not for me.
So I think that if any of us take the time to sit down and look at a situation, we will have 18 different opinions on how that should be resolved. You can listen to any talk show,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And we will sit and listen to those talk shows, and we will talk to the TV and tell them exactly what they need to be doing. So I think that's our instinct, is really to find something and fix it. I think people in general are fixers. So we just need to take that time to sit down and look at something, be still long enough to look at what's out there and say, this is something that I know does need to be done. Nobody's doing it right now. Here's a solution I have. Let me not go complain about something just because it's not being done right.
Oh, that's a good one.
But let me always come with a solution. I see this isn't being done. I think this is something that could be done to fix it. Would you allow me to do that? Or put a team together that will do that? Or at least evaluate it and see what could be done about it, because clearly it's a problem for the company, for the organization I'm in, for my family, whatever it may be. If you can take the time to look at it and just intentionally think about what could be done better. Sometimes it's not even broken, right? If it's not broke, don't fix it. Or
Right.
if it's not,
Another quote.
whatever the other one is. Yeah, but sometimes it's not even broken, but it could be done better.
Better innovation.
Yeah. So look at it and say, you know what? And I have a solution to that. And then put a team together that can address that and articulate it, communicate it, write it down, but get it done.
I like that. And, you know, what comes to my mind, too, as you're saying that, Heather, is to, well, first of all, I love what you said about don't complain, right? And find a solution. Think about it. Think about what could happen. And maybe even come with a couple of options. You know, I've thought about it, and this is one option, and this is another option. I mean, what boss wouldn't like that? We know they would, right?
Yes.
People aren't doing that. So come to the table, show up with presence. And that's part of being a professional and standing out from the crowd and showing that you're a strong brand, no matter what age you are. And ask yourself, too, like I said to you, you've been called an evangelist. Ask yourself, wonder what one word people would say about me. What would that be? And there's another word I know about you that also has been said, and that's the word zest. Zest for life. So, okay, you wanted to be the president, you wanted all these things, so what's next for Heather?
Oh my goodness. I am so busy doing what I love right now. I don't know. You know what? I am not dead yet. Could still be president. Could still be Supreme Court justice. Or
Might vote for you.
don't know. Could still happen. But I am loving what I do right now. You know, one of the other things that I would say too, my brand of leadership is very much servant leadership. So I make it a point every day to try to find somebody else I can build up. Somebody whose arms I can hold up, who's somebody who I can promote, maybe sometimes just somebody that you can encourage that you know is really discouraged that day. But I know it blesses me. So I'm at a place now in my life where I'm really looking at how I can build other people and how I can help them come up as well. Because I have been so blessed, and I do believe you're blessed to be a blessing. And that makes my life joyful when I know I'm impacting somebody else's life. So, and I think that does come from that servant leader mentality, not being prideful. You know, as you bring a solution to somebody, particularly if you're managing up, right? You don't want to come with, I have the answer to this and this is what we need to go do. It's much more, how can you make your boss look good? How can you help the company look good? Here's where I think we can do it. And very much a humble attitude of service and of being a servant to lead the company to where it can be a better place. So those are the things that I'm doing now. And then wherever it takes me, it takes me.
Well, as you said, you can be an encourager every day. You know, when was the last time anyone said to you during the day, gee, you look great today, or good job, or, I mean, but we can do that for other people, even if it's like this morning, getting a bottle of water and saying, hey, what's your name? I mean, the lady this morning when we got a bottle of water to come in here, she was totally surprised that we even said, and what's your name? Like, I'm a real person. Yes, you are.
Yes.
I have to believe that there are some quotes or whatever you want to say that I'm going to call teachable points of view, TPOV. And by that I mean, I'd love for you to share 3 or 4 things you'd like to leave with people listening today that are things that anyone can teach and say, you know, keep these things in mind as you are growing in your career, as you are stepping out and taking those risks. So what are they?
So I would say first, establish your foundation, right? For me, it's being a servant leader. That's kind of where I base all of my values on. It blossoms out of my faith in Christ. So really being that servant leader. Then going back to a moving ship is easier to steer than one that's dead in the water. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to take risks. Step out of the boat. Go out and try to do something. Do it in the right way. And another quote for me is Winston Churchill's quote, that success is defined as the ability to go from failure to failure without a loss of enthusiasm.
Oh,
so
I love that one. I'll grab that one.
That's
you.
just always important. Always be willing to take risks. Then prepare yourself. So for me, I had to go back to school. It was not a convenient time. It was not a good thing that I had planned, but it was a necessary thing. So be prepared, and then then be willing to wait. So prepare yourself, have all the ability, the knowledge that you need, and then when the time comes up, you'll be ready to do what you need to do to be successful. And then finally, find what needs to be done, create a solution to it, and then go do it, and do it right.
I love that. That's a great closure to the show. Heather, thank you so much. I've learned something. I know our listeners have, and we all love quotes. We all love those little jewels of wisdom that you've had to learn through life. You know, if we could I've always said, if we could go back, live life backwards, right?
Yeah.
It would be great. We would be so smart. So you're a grandmother. You be sure and tell your grandchildren, now listen to me, because I've already got the scars to prove it. And so I might have a few little
We sit on that front porch
TPOBs.
swing and talk about it.
Do you?
We do.
That's awesome. I love that. Thanks so much for being on the
Thank you
show.
for inviting me. I've loved it. I think this is a great opportunity, and I appreciate being invited.
All right. And we will see you next time.